And it's Michigan's AutoTalk Podcast. Hi, this is episode number 91. Every episode of Michigan's AutoTalk is about celebrating the automobile, everything automotive, and also about helping and supporting you car and truck owners across the great state of Michigan. As a reminder, you can find all of our episodes, all previous 90, on the iHeartRadio app. We're also on Spotify and Apple Podcast. I'm very pleased to welcome back to this program. We had him on episode 90, his CBS Newsradio automotive reporter and all-around great guy. He's also with WWJ when you're in Detroit.
I actually put that on my business card.
Well, it's true. It's true. He is Jeff Gilbert, and just recently, as of a week ago, and by the way, we need to let everyone know, we've talked about this on a previous episode a year ago, Jeff is one of the esteemed jurors for what ends up being the biggest car story that comes out in January. That's the North American Car and Truck of the Year Awards. They were awarded last week, January 11th, in Detroit. 3 big awards whittled down from 47 entries, Jeff?
Yeah,
is that right?
And whittled down from more vehicles than that are introduced in a model year. The vehicles that are eligible are all the vehicles that are either brand new or consistently updated for a new model year. So we take that bunch, narrow them down to semifinalists, basically based on what we've learned about the vehicles, not necessarily driving them. And then we drive all of the semifinalists, narrow that down to 3 finalists in each category. And then at that point, from the 3 finalists, we vote again, and that's where the winners are chosen.
Can you tell us what the organization is that does this?
Yeah, it's called North American Car, Truck, and Utility of the Year. We're a volunteer organization. Nobody gets any money. In fact, we all pay $150 a year in dues to join this organization. And all of us who serve on the board serve as volunteers. We don't make any money off of it. It's 50 automotive journalists who actually are people like me who write about vehicles, who test drive vehicles, who go to auto companies, drive programs, things of that nature. And we do our own drive program once a year in the Ann Arbor area, where we bring in all of our jurors and all of the semifinalists to drive vehicles back to back.
I just wanted people to know that you're not, because one of the big things out there is, I think now it's called Motor Trend Car of the Year and stuff like that.
Yeah, and Motor Trend is a big award. I would say our award and Motor Trend are probably the 2 biggest in the United States. Motor Trend is a magazine, and it's their editors, their people who judge the cars, and they obviously judge it from an enthusiast standpoint.
Yeah, they're biased.
well, no, I honestly think they make an honest choice. I don't think it's because somebody advertises in their magazine or anything like that.
And they do a long-term test on cars.
They do long-term tests, things like that.
I don't know.
But that is their point of view of an enthusiast magazine. In our case, we've got 50 people from different publications. You've got people like the auto critics of the Detroit News and the Detroit Free Press. You have people from Edmunds.com and Kelley Blue Book, those companies that, Auto Authority, people like that, websites, people from radio like me, John McElroy, who's been an institution in the business for years. So you've got all of these people, and we all look at vehicles from a different standpoint. Some people do look at performance and enthusiasm. I look at it from the standpoint of an upper middle-aged guy, a regular person driving a vehicle, as opposed to a super enthusiast, from a regular consumer standpoint. There are people who look at it from family standpoints, from business standpoints. So that, to me, is the value of this award. You've got all of these different ways of looking at vehicles, and it somehow comes together.
Well, thank you for that, because I think it is important for people to know that this isn't the Motor Trend thing, because a lot of people I know, my friends and that, think, oh, well, they're the Motor Trend people. And it's like, no, this is a totally separate deal.
We're somewhat competitors, but being a nonprofit, it's not like, we're competitors.
Exactly.
Yeah. And
I think of it as more of like a practical, still hot rodded, but a practical daily drive. Like, you're not going to award the car of the year to like some hyper car. Like it's got its class, and it's
it could be. It depends on how it does in its class compared to others. I mean, we had the Corvette win a couple of years ago, and I would say in the coming year the Mustang might be a good competitor. Acura Acura Integra was a winner for Car of the Year this year.
Yep.
I'll also briefly mention the Kia EV6 for Utility of the Year and the F-150 Lightning for Truck of the Year, and that also won Motor Trend, by the way. Other awards we didn't overlap, but that was probably pretty obvious because it was the Truck of the Year that received the most attention, so that was kind of easy. But interestingly enough, this year, 2 of the 3 winners were electric vehicles.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that when you guys do overlap, that means that that's a serious something people need to look at.
Yeah, and the interesting thing, there was one overlap in utility. We gave it to the Kia EV6. They gave it to the Hyundai Ioniq 5, and the 2 vehicles are pretty much identical underneath. We didn't count the Hyundai this year because it was in the competition last year.
Interesting. Gotcha. You are a juror, which means you are one of the people who judge these vehicles, and there are how many jurors overall?
50.
Jeff, 50. Okay.
50,
so,
yeah.
I mean, how often do you guys communicate? Obviously, we have email, we have Zoom. How often do you communicate about this as a group, etc.?
We communicate in terms of just how colleagues communicate. It's not like we sit down and have a meeting and say, okay, we're going to choose this. The way it works, and I cannot take credit for this, but I think the person or people who came up with a way to do this were geniuses. We all have points to assign. The first voting, we have 25 points to assign to the semifinalists. You cannot give more than 10 points to one vehicle, and only one vehicle can get 10. No other one can do that. So you've got to, in the first vote, spread out your points, and the 3 vehicles that finish tops are the 3 finalists in each category. So that kind of is a good way to give it a consensus on, okay, if a lot of people give one vehicle a lot of points, it's going to win. But if a few people give it a lot of points and another few people give it little points, but it all adds up, then it wins. So it really is a good way to show consensus instead of an out-and-out vote. Then among the finalists, we have 3 in each category. We have 10 points to assign. We can assign all of them to one vehicle, split them up however we want.
Interesting. Excellent. Did you, can't help, and Ellen John, we're probably going to ask it anyway. Did you have a couple for you? I know you drove a lot of them. I'm assuming you did. You just mentioned earlier you drive 70 to 80 cars a year.
And in this case, you really have to drive all of the contenders.
So which ones, and I know you had, well, you're a reporter, so you have to be somewhat unbiased. Can you tell us which ones you enjoyed the most?
Oh, yeah. Well, I'll tell you what I voted for. I mean, this obviously is biased because you're voting for one and against another.
And you're a guy. We like cars, right?
But your criteria for it should be unbiased. You shouldn't,
right.
The bias there would be, hey, I've got a friend who works for GM, so I'm going to vote for all of their vehicles. What you want is an honest decision. Let's break down the 3 finalists in each category. If you take a look at car, that was actually the toughest one because you had the Nissan Z, the Acura Integra, and the Genesis G80 EV, the electric version of that. Yeah,
that's a big boy. That had to be the runner-up, if not.
It actually was, but I think part of that was because if you look at the votes, the Z and the Integra are kind of similar type vehicles, so they may have split some of the vote as well. For me, again, in all these categories, most of the finalists are worthy. I gave more points, and I can't remember how many I gave. I gave slightly more points to the Z than the Integra, and I also think I gave a couple of points to the G80. Reason being, the Z felt a little more original, whereas the Integra is still based on the Honda Civic, and of the two, the Z just felt like it hit the mission more. But I have no objection to the Integra winning because it was a really nice car as well. The G80, I like the vehicle, but there was nothing really special about it. It was just an electric version of a very nice mid-size luxury sedan. Moving over to truck, that was the easiest. The F-150 Lightning, is a groundbreaker. We also had a variant of the Chevy Silverado, the ZR2, a very nice vehicle, but you kind of knew this was going to be Ford's year. And runner-up was the Lordstown Endurance, which is a nice fleet truck. It's interesting. It debuted. I don't think many people gave it a chance. Even the Lordstown people, I think, were just happy to be considered. And on EV, most of us thought the Kia EV6 would win Utility of the Year. It was up against a Cadillac Lyriq, which is also a very nice EV, but Kia's mass market, Cadillac is luxury.
Yeah.
It's harder to make a great vehicle that's mass market than it is to make a luxury vehicle. Other one was the Genesis GV60, also a luxury vehicle. Again, same underpinnings as the Kia, but the Kia is mass market, so that's why I lean to that. So that kind of gives you a peek inside my brain, frightening as it may be.
No, not too frightening at all. By the way, we want to let our listeners know you can learn all about the awards and the jurors and this year's winners at NorthAmericanCarOfTheYear.org. You just type it all out, NorthAmericanCarOfTheYear.org. And we should also let our listeners know, because we love having Jeff on the podcast. Jeff has just been elected president of the jurors, which means more work. Maybe what else? A better desk when you eventually get together?
Not really. What really happened was I've been treasurer for the past 3 years. And when they asked me to be treasurer, I said, okay, it's a 2-year term. And they added a third one to kind of stagger the voting. But anyhow, I said, okay, I'm doing it for 2 years and then I'm out of here. And as I did it, I really enjoyed working with the other members of the board. And the gentleman who had been president during that time, Gary Witzenberg, just did an outstanding job. And frankly, I started thinking that the next president should come from the board. I asked the other members of the board, they weren't really interested. And I thought, I could actually, about a year ago, I thought I could actually see myself doing this. They encouraged me to do it. And, this is one of those jobs, the elections are usually not contested. It's kind of like, oh, you're willing to do it? Thank you.
Yep.
Exactly.
And frankly, the treasurer's job, I think, was a lot harder. So I think once I get the guy who replaced me as treasurer trained, I'm thinking of all the things I have to do as president, and most of them involve writing emails. So
and you have Deloitte that certifies your vote, so it's all on the up and up. And
you know what? I just learned how much they do, because, okay, it's 50 jurors. You're thinking they should get this cranked out in a half hour. It takes them days because they have different people who certify different things. And it's not like you and me counting. These are people who are professionals who have standards for doing it, and they want to make sure it's done right, certified. And it just blew me away, all of the work that went into counting ballots from 50 people. And I was impressed. And they told me just at this week's thing that there's kind of a competition to be one of the people who counts this, because they feel it's kind of an honor to be able to do something like that. That's maybe a little bit more enjoyable than doing somebody's taxes.
Okay, fun question. And let's see if I got it right. Al and John, just real quickly, I'm going to go down the line. Al, John, and then I'll go last. Which of these three cars cost the least, and which costs the most?
Like right out of the gate, or maintenance?
Well, just as no price. I'm going to say that
go over the three cars a minute.
So it's the Acura Integra, the three winners, the Lightning, and then the Kia is at the EV6, right, Jeff?
Yeah.
Okay.
The cheapest one's going to be the Acura, I think. Maybe it's the Kia. It's between those two.
I would have guessed the Kia, John.
Well, again, right out of the gate,
Integra.
Yeah, well, no, it's an Acura. Those things are always crazy expensive. Kia.
Kia. All right. And obviously the Lightning's the most expensive. My question is for you, Jeff. Do you know? I'm looking at this. The sticker.
I don't know, but I would assume it was the Acura, because the Kia is an EV, right? They tend to be more expensive, and the Acura, this is kind of the entry-level Acura. It's kind of the everyman's Acura. It's a Honda with a little more luxury touches and a more powerful engine. So I am thinking, if it was off of the top of my head, that I just did a test drive on the Acura, so I do know its prices run in the 30s for the most part.
Okay, that's got to be
the Kia is most likely well into the 40s.
Yep.
And the F-150 Lightning used to start in the 40s, but it's kept going up as it gets more expensive, and you can get those almost to six figures now if you put enough on them.
I guess maybe I was thinking of the older Acuras where you compare them to like a Honda or what, like they're basically the same platform, but just like super, way more. And I don't know. I keep thinking of cost of maintenance and what it actually runs them. But
I have it. The base price for the Lightning is $55,974. So out of the
nobody buys a $55,000.
That's the Pro trim plus the destination charge. Then the XLT with a high trim is $89,744, about $81,000. And then the Platinum
is
Extended is $97,000. So by far, just to the MSRP,
for you, $96,999.
Thank you.
Hey, Bob Barker.
MSRP, by the way, Jeff was very close. The Acura is $31,100. The Kia EV6 is $48,500.
All right.
And then the Lightning is the most expensive, starting around $60,000. So there you have it. Those are your three winners for North American car, truck, and utility vehicle of the year. Right, Jeff?
Yep, that's the name.
Those are the three. And now to vote for the 2023, the voting starts. When do you guys go to work again? You get a little bit of an off season. When do you go to work again?
I kind of, and technically speaking, these were the 23 awards because they, it was January of 23, and most of these are 23 models. But we're constantly driving vehicles. That's one of the part of the job. I do a test drive feature every week, so you're looking at the newer ones throughout the year. Once we get into the summer, about June, July, we have our board secretary. Her job is to take a look at the vehicles and try to find out which vehicles each year in contract, in concert with the manufacturers, which ones are eligible. We compile that list and we vote on that in August at the auto show in Detroit, where we used to be in January. That's where we announce the awards. Now we announce the semifinalists. And then we do our drive program in October, and we have the finalists at the LA Auto Show, and the winners will be in early January next year in Detroit.
All right, good enough.
And I'm sure COVID didn't help you any, because I got a 2022 delivered weeks after friends of mine got 2023s.
Yeah, well, COVID messed everything up, and it in fact, that was the first year that I was on the board. We ended up having to do a virtual ceremony to give out the awards that year. It was a little bit harder. Some car companies shut down their press fleets for a while because of COVID, and they added different protocols. I remember that Chevy had a program where, instead of bringing a lot of people in to drive the vehicle, they bring it to you for a day to take a drive, and they drop off the vehicles with a bunch of masks and hand sanitizer put in there just to show, how special they are and how much they care about you. I still have some of those masks that I pull out from time to time when I have a doctor's appointment and need them. Those GM masks that were UAW made were some of the best masks.
Of course they were.
During the pandemic. They did a good job. They don't make them anymore. They just buy them.
Yes, indeed. And that'll put the wraps on episode number 191. Jeff Gilbert, CBS News Radio automotive reporter, also with WWJ Radio in Detroit. Jeff, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Hey, we appreciate it.
Yep.
I'm Al Schwinkendorf.
I'm John Puhek. Thanks for listening.